Dank Times Danker Thoughts. Sweet vibes and taking it sleazy. The dankness is taking over. Nonsense is dancing through his mind. Oh, the dankness is taking over. Dank Times Danker Thoughts with Angelo Grosso.
Well, hello there, everybody. Come on in and welcome to another podcast with your boy Angelo. I guess this is podcast number... Holy shit, is it really 53? Damn. Podcast 53, Dank Times Danker Thoughts with Angelo Grosso. It's Memorial Day as I record this, and I just finished working a couple hours outside in this beautiful weather. Took a nice cold shower. I must have washed off 2 pounds of dust and sweat and plant residue off of me. And now I'm sitting here drinking the best iced coffee I have made in a long time. Actually, I take it back. It's not just iced coffee. This is a Thai iced coffee. I put some ginger and some cinnamon and some coffee together. Ooh, and some vanilla syrup. Ooh, baby, you know what's up. In fact, I'm going to take another sippy poo. Oh, that's a good one. I'm also making an exception on my marijuana that I smoke. I primarily stick to indicas and indica dominant hybrids. Very rarely do I smoke a straight sativa. Well, today being Memorial Day and knowing that I was going to spend a couple hours working my ass off outside, I decided, fuck it, let me buy one of my favorite sativas, Lottie Dottie. And that is, I'm smoking the Smoky Point Lottie Dottie. Smoky Point is a dank company. But as I mentioned, it is Memorial Day. And Memorial Day doesn't really mean a whole lot to me personally, because I haven't lost anybody, family or friend or foe, to the military or to some level of serving their country. I just haven't. And it's kind of shitty that sometimes you have to experience something firsthand for it to really take hold. And that's not to say that I don't, care for the military. Of course I do. I do think they get praised a little bit too much. Everyone's a hero. Everybody's a hero. We just throw around that word hero. So you're telling me that a 19-year-old that goes over there spends 2 years on a computer programming shit, never sees battle, never sees... Actually, he maybe not even be sent overseas. He never sees combat, never sees any action. He's just an IT guy, and he comes home, and just because he was in the military, that motherfucker's a hero? Come on. But, I have met plenty of military, current and former, that I would describe as heroes. But I've met a lot more that are just regular Joes and gals. They're not really anything special, and I don't think something they did when they were young and stupid for a couple years should make them carry this inscrutable badge of honor for the rest of their life. They have to do something, in my opinion. And I could sound harsh, and I could sound like a pretentious cunt, and I probably am. My point being, just because you're in the military doesn't make you a hero. Not everyone is like a John F. Kennedy or a Ted Williams or... Oh god, why am I drawing a blank on famous military people? But you know what I'm trying to say. John McCain, for example, he, in my opinion, he's held in very high esteem for his military career because he was captured by the Viet Cong and tortured, and he never gave up his platoon or whatnot. When you look at his full military career, he crashed a hell of a lot of planes and almost killed a lot of American soldiers. That's not to say, him being captured and tortured and never talking doesn't necessarily make him a hero. I honor him for that. That's courageous, but is that it? Just because you get captured and tortured, you're a hero? I don't know. I could be an asshole here. Who knows? I was never a fan of John McCain in general, and whenever I would say anything negative about him, the people that would agree with me would then say, yes, but he's still a hero because of the military service. And that was just like, you can't talk poorly about John McCain up to a certain point because he's such a legend. He's such a heroic figure. Is he? But anyway, happy Memorial Day. If I have any military personnel listening, don't kick my ass next time I meet you. I try to judge everyone equally. I don't give a fuck what you do. I treat a janitor the same way I treat a doctor, and I treat a teacher the same way I treat a Marine. Who gives a fuck? You know, everyone is an asshole and everyone's a hero. Who gives a fuck? You know, we like to throw around these A+ words for C+ people. That's my point. But let's move on to politics. I checked the news a couple hours ago and I saw the headline: Senate GOP blocks legislation on January 6th commission. Side note, for whatever reason, when I say the word legislation, I get a lot of saliva in my mouth. It's like I'm trying to spit up or something. I don't understand. Legislation. Yeah, I think that I don't know. It does something to my mouth. Anyway, not that surprised. I was talking last week that I personally think that this January 6th commission was very important, and I was hoping that the GOP and the Senate would not do the expected and actually vote to go along with it. And I also talked about some of my fears about the commission and what that could or might do for future domestic and international surveillance. But doesn't matter. It didn't get passed. And there was some Republican support. Let me read off who voted for it. Murkowski, not a surprise. Romney, not a surprise. Collins, not a surprise. Cassidy, Portman, Sass, none of these are surprises. Pat Toomey missed the vote, but he said he would have done it. And that piece of shit, McConnell, just a couple of weeks ago was talking about, yeah, he's probably going to do it. I'll do it. Maybe, I don't know. And then he came out and said, no, I'm not going to support it. And then actively railed against it. And that piece of garbage, McCarthy, really went all out to try to sabotage this. And yeah, I'm not that surprised. I really am not. And I know some of the Republicans that voted against it were talking about another report that's going to come out here soon. But I don't know. What's the report called? Republicans argued the commission would be duplicative to a joint investigation overseen by the Senate Rules Committee and the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee. So that whole thing is going to be a report. That report is expected to come out early next month, but unlike a commission, the report focused narrowly on Capitol security and intelligence, so not within the ranks. And it's pretty simple to me why the Republicans did not want to support this in the Senate is because it would make them look bad. But I would argue going against it makes you look bad. Now, true, there are some voters that really don't give a fuck about January 6th. They don't. However, I still think it would have been important to find out which senators or which government officials, or anyway, we need to know what happened. How did we get here? But also, I think that some in the Republican ranks were afraid that if a commission would have been formed, that they would have been seen as accomplices. And that's some thin ice there. What do we do about this? What do we do about the Hollies of the world who were rooting them on? You can rail against the Trumpers because Trump was out there giving his speech to kind of rile up everybody like he was some kind of WWF promoter. And then of course you saw a bunch of the cell phone video footage of Donald Trump Jr. and his cracked out wife were just cheering it on, and as this whole room full of rich white people were watching the insurrection, drinking champagne and just getting fucked up. I mean, none of that has to do with anything in relation to who's currently in there, unless someone within the Senate was helping them. Then we want to know. But anyway, I don't know if this is making any sense or I'm just talking circles, but not a surprise that the Republicans don't want this to happen. I hope that in the midterms, the Democrats do a decent job of bringing up the insurrection in battleground states, because I really fear for Biden and the Democrats in the midterms, because besides COVID, Biden really hasn't done much of anything to keep some of his promises in terms of student loan debt, healthcare. His foreign policies have been more missed than hit, in my opinion. But he has done some good. He has, but we need to do something else. We either need to send out some more checks. You're going to have to help students, okay? You're going to have to help out renters. You're going to have to help out the low and the poor and just middle class. And we need something quick. And I feel like this infrastructure bill is taking forever, and it's already been whittled down to fucking nothing, and it's bare bones. But it's a step in the right direction. And anything he can do for minimum wage, and Biden really needs to do a 180 in terms of student loan debt and the private options, because he's flipped already, and not for the better. And I can just see what happened to Obama happening to Biden, and the midterms are going to slaughter. The Democrats are going to lose, and we're going to be right back to where we were in 2016. It's going to be a fucking shit show. A fucking shit show. So, I don't know, people. I'm concerned. And ironically, the side of the Republicans that I'm concerned for is the Trump Republicans, and Trump's in the news again because he had to fight back at good old Paul Ryan, who hasn't shown his witchy face in quite a while. Paul Ryan went out there to talk to a bunch of conservatives in some luncheon or some shit. I don't know. Ryan delivered a speech at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California. Ronald Reagan Library. Think they're all pop-up books there? Paul Ryan was warning of the political perils facing the Republican Party if it continues on its current trajectory. And I quote, "If the conservative cause depends on the populist appeal of one personality or on second-rate imitations, then we're not going anywhere." During his speech, Ryan did not criticize Trump by name, although he left no doubt as to whom he was referring to. At one point, he said that GOP voters would not be impressed by the sight of yes-men and flatterers flocking to Mar-a-Lago. And I'd like to believe Ryan. I'd like to believe the mass majority of Republican voters are over Trump. They're done. They kind of want to wash that stain off of them or whatnot. I'd like to believe that, but until the midterms, I don't know. I don't know. The Democrats can't get out of their own way. Biden, to his credit, he has tried to be bipartisan. He has tried, and the way that McConnell and McCarthy have fucked the Democrats over time and time again, I'd like to think Biden's going to say enough is enough, and he's not going to be playing, t-ball with him anymore. He's going to start playing hardball. Yeah, you like that little analogy? But to his detriment, Biden sometimes listens too much to the criticism on the right and not so much on the criticism on the left. He's trying, in my opinion, he's trying a little too hard to be bipartisan, where anyone with common political sense can see that there is no bipartisan on this issue, whether it be raising the minimum wage, whether it be infrastructure, whether it be healthcare, whether it be the China bill, whether it be this January 6th commission. The Republicans and the Democrats are not going to vote hand in hand, or if they are, it's going to be in the minority, like in the January 6th commission, where, yes, you did get some Republican support, but it wasn't enough. I think they still needed 3 or 4 more votes. So I just fear that the Democrats are just going to blunder through, and they're going to miss some golden opportunities to really paint the Republicans as a dying political party that's really fraught with aging, racist, and out-of-touch capitalists, honestly. And I'm not to say those kind of people aren't on the Democrat side. They're just not so in the open. But in retaliation to this Paul Ryan speech, those remarks during his speech about Trump, of course, Trump couldn't take it with, turn the other cheek, so to speak. He criticized Ryan, calling him a plague. And Paul Ryan has been a curse to the Republican Party, Trump said. He has no clue as to what needs to be done for our country, was a weak and ineffective leader, and spends all of his time fighting Republicans as opposed to Democrats who are destroying our country. So, same old from Cheeto Dick there. So what are you going to do? But you know what? Enough of politics. Enough. There's nothing we can do but just twiddle our thumbs and wait for the midterms and then cry or celebrate. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Politics is just a very lame sport. Anyway, fuck politics. Let's move on. And what's fast becoming a integral part of the podcast, dare I say the fan favorite part of the podcast, is my dating updates. And I know the last podcast I was talking about two for sure, but a third possible dates coming up. And a little update on that. The teacher that I was super excited to meet, literally the next day after I posted the previous podcast, I went back to the app to talk to her. She was gone. So she deleted or ghosted or whatever. So the teacher was gone, which sucked, but I got over it pretty quick. I hadn't even heard this person's voice, but you know, sometimes you like to build people up in your head because you're a fucking mook. And I think I mentioned the second one was a nurse that I wasn't that excited to meet, and I ended up not meeting her because the first date I went on was with another nurse. Well, I should clarify, a certified nurse assistant. She wanted me to make sure I said that, right? She was great, and I didn't want to go on another date with another woman after the first couple dates with this certified nurse assistant. I'm going to call her Boo Boo to protect the innocent here. So I met Boo Boo, and my first reaction was, holy shit, I underdressed, because she showed up dressed to the nines, and I was wearing, I think, black linen pants and a salmon pink hoodie. That was what I wore to the first date, and we hit it off. We have a lot in common, whether it is about politics, religion, outlook on things, wants that we want in a relationship, family, marriage, all that stuff. And she has a great laugh, a great smile, and I respect her job, even though it's a hard job, doesn't get a lot of respect. She gets treated like shit by a lot of the clientele, and they don't get paid well. But that's, you know, it takes a special kind of person to do those jobs that you really don't get anything out of besides people like me saying, oh, you're such a hero. Now, to me, that's a hero. That's a hero. Going to some old fuck's house, cleaning their ass, giving them a shower, taking care of their medication, you know, doing the shit that a lot of people don't want to do for their parents, you know, and I'm kind of in the same boat. You know, my parents are older, in their 70s, and they're getting to the point where sooner or later I'm going to have to spend more time with them, not just, you know, shooting the shit and having fun, but I am going to have to help them with medical stuff. I'm going to have to drive them to appointments. I'm going to have to possibly pay for things. I'm going to have to maybe further down the road, I may have to have one of them move in because they can't live on the road, whatever, you know. This is a distinct possibility for the mass majority of Americans. And, you know, our culture, we like to kind of throw away our old people problems in homes. Every so often you see a white family that has the older grandparents or the parents move in with them. But we, you know, as Americans, we don't really like to do that. That tends to be more a immigrant, or not, I don't know if immigrant's the right word, but a non-westernized white person's mentality, you know. Growing up, I went to a lot of Asian Americans' households, and there was a lot of elderly living with them. Same thing with Eastern Europeans, Africans, Latin Americans, of course, is big. Pretty much it's all cultures except Anglo-Saxon white people. We really don't respect our elders here because they're fucking boomers and they're horrific people. So anyway, yeah, the date went great. We decided to see each other again, and we did, and that went well. And so yeah, we're kind of seeing each other, still getting to know each other. So yeah, things are looking good there. She is Kenyan, which is funny in the sense that, as I've spoken ad nauseum on this podcast, blacks in America and blacks in Africa never had any luck or any kind of luck with them going on dates or even getting to the point of attractiveness, to the point of they want to talk to me. And now it seems like I'm inundated, and I met a really cool one. Boo Boo's a really cool chick. She's got a very good sense of humor, which is imperative for me when it comes to women. You know, I need to have a woman that genuinely finds me funny, which, you know, is not difficult. I'm a funny motherfucker. but also I like to laugh, and yeah. But I also want to be careful, and I want to not make the same mistakes that I have made in the past, which is either I rush into certain things, or I am too slow to get into certain things, or possibly prejudge or don't judge enough. There's an ebb and flow to these things, and you really just want to find a nice balance so that you're content and happy with what you're getting in return and what you're giving this new person in your romantic life. Sometimes I fuck up, and then I try to learn from those fuck ups. I think you kind of have to. When I was younger, I didn't. I would either blame them or blame fate and move on with my life. And now I realize, yeah, sometimes it's their fault, but hey, often it's my fault. Believe it or not, sometimes Angelo Grosso fucks up. I know, shocker, right? So I'm trying not to get too worked up in the sense of putting her on a pedestal or taking her for granted. So there's a back and forth here, but I try to put all that bullshit aside and just focus on the now, take it as it comes, but just kind of have my eye on making sure that you're not building someone up to a point where they could never meet or match those expectations, because that's on you. Or you kind of look past a lot of things and you're just happy to be with someone because you're lonely or it's good for your self-esteem. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say. You settle. And, so you don't want to do either of those things. She knows I have the podcast. She's listened to the podcast. And believe it or not, she said she likes the podcast and thinks I'm good at it, which, if you want to get in my pants, that's one way to do it. Is lie to me about my podcast. Oh, boy. This podcast is mediocre at best. Which is how I would describe myself most of the time. So, oh boy. But let's move on. I want to talk about some cunts of the week. This may be a new ongoing segment I do every podcast where it's the cunts of the week. Now, I know I've gotten some pushback from friends that say, do you really have to use the word cunt so much on this podcast? And I say, yes, I do. I'm trying to normalize the word cunt. It's normal all over the world. For whatever reason, we hold it here as such a vile, vulgar word, and I'm not sure why. I mean, duh, you know why. But I don't know why other words that basically are the same word as cunt are more acceptable. You just got to get over these taboos, people. Again, these taboos, traditions, they're just dead people's baggage. If you like the word, say it. But anyway, you get my point. These are the cunts of the week, the dumb fuck-ups of the week, whatever. The assholes of the week. You catch my meaning. First one, Seth Rogan, coming out here talking about how comedians need to stop focusing on cancel culture and stop making jokes about it or stop complaining about it. And, before I get into my tirade about this, let me actually read what he said. During Rogan's interview with Good Morning Britain on Tuesday, he admitted that some of his films probably haven't aged well by today's standards. The former stand-up turned actor, writer, producer then made some comments on the morning show addressing cancel culture that has comics scratching their heads. To me, when I see comedians complaining about this kind of thing, I don't understand what they're complaining about. If you've made a joke that's aged terribly, accept it. And if you don't think it's aged terribly, then say that. Then he later added that receiving criticism is one of the things that goes along with being an artist. If you don't like that, then don't be a comedian anymore. See, that's what rubs me the wrong way. To me, it's not worth complaining about to the degree I see other comedians complaining about. And I would agree with Seth Rogen on this if there is a comedian, for example, that's where it's his or her main bit or only bit, and that's they just milk it, then I understand. Move on. You're abusing cancel culture for just material that's not that funny. I get that. But to say that comedians need to accept that and address it and not complain about it is just strange to me, because I'm not sure, outside journalists, I'm not sure if there's another group of people whose job it is gets just pounded on a daily basis with this quote-unquote cancel culture ideology. And I know I said journalist there, but if you think of, the Associated Press just fired a journalist for a pro-Palestinian post. I mean, that's absurd. Now, true, I don't know what the post was. If it was racist towards Jewish people, like kill them all, go Palestine, then I understand. Probably not good. But to my understanding, it wasn't that. In fact, I heard that it was something she said in high school. So, and that's where cancel culture, I think, is worse than COVID. And because if you're dredging up bullshit from 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, and that person then has to get fired or they lose their livelihood or whatever, I mean, that's insanity to me the mass majority of the time. Now, if they uncover a murder that this person did 20 years ago, well, then sure, that should happen. But, Caitlyn Jenner, who wants to be governor of California, she killed a few people, or I think she killed at least one and almost killed a second person. She got away with it. She paid off those people and never faced a second of jail time or community service. And now she's running for governor talking about canceling cancel culture and waking up woke people. And you're like, holy shit. Now, I'm all for canceling Caitlyn Jenner. I'm not sure there's a bigger cunt out there than Caitlyn or Bruce Jenner or whoever you want to call Caitlyn at this point. It would be pretty funny if Caitlyn was Bruce at the time and Bruce Jenner killed those people, and that's why he became a she and became Caitlyn Jenner, to saying, hey, Caitlyn Jenner didn't kill those people, Bruce Jenner did. So Caitlyn can't go to prison, Bruce did, but Bruce is no more, and if you say Bruce Jenner, that's offensive, and I'm going to take you to court. So maybe that's what happened. But anyway, bringing it back to Seth Rogan, I have seen some of my favorite comedians who have followed for 10, 15, sometimes 20 years. And they bring up shit from the 90s. And they bring up shit from when they were like up and coming struggling comedians, or they it's very easy one. They go and find old MySpace or Facebook or Twitter posts, and it's just like, who gives a fuck? If that person who you're trying to ruin their career is still doing those things, like the guy who was fired from SNL for making a very cliche, stereotypical Asian driving joke. It wasn't funny because it wasn't original or unique or didn't have a perspective on it. It was just, hey, Asians are bad at driving. Hey, it wasn't funny. I don't think he should have been fired for it. That's insane. That writer should have just said, yeah, it was a stupid joke, whatever, and then just move on. Or don't even address it at all. So, fuck you, Seth Rogan. I don't understand why you don't see the damage of this. It's one thing to have someone like a Harvey Weinstein, a Bill Cosby, major shit going on. So, Seth Rogan, congratulations. You're the first of this week's Cunt of the Week. But moving on to another Cunt of the Week. But I'm going to hold on a second and take another swig of this amazingly, orgasmically good Thai iced coffee. Oh, baby. Oh, even the burp tastes good. Second one is the public school system in this country. I know, a little curveball there. Public education isn't a person. Well, no. But let me explain to you why the American public school system is probably the most important institution in this country for developing progressive, non-racist, forward-thinking, inoffensive minds, and yet we treat these kids and the teachers and the food they eat. I mean, this is the education they eat. I mean, it's insanity, okay? I mean, I grew up thinking that Jesus was white and had blue eyes, and the Egyptians were white and had blue eyes, and that white people never did anything bad, and Christopher Columbus should be on our money because he's a goddamn hero, okay? Now, that was private schools teaching. Christians were teaching me that fucking bullshit. And then I went to public school, and it was not any better. I mean, it was better in the sense I had more diversity around me, but it was still garbage curriculum. Now, let me illustrate this, okay? One of my favorite TV shows of the last 5-10 years has been HBO's Watchmen, which was, I think, 2019. Amazing show if you haven't seen it. If you haven't watched it, yeah, get off your ass and watch it. And the very first episode opens up with the Tulsa Massacre of 1921. I was watching that episode thinking everything I was watching was a fictional event for the show, because it was so horrific. It can't possibly be true. because I would have known about it. I love history. I like American history. I went to college. I went to private and public school. I have parents who are both very much into history. I watch history shows. I listen to history podcasts. What I'm trying to tell you is, I think I know most important major events in not only the world, but I'd like to think my country, I know them. So, to my shock and horror, the next day I was reading up on the episode and I found out that that was a real event. The Tulsa Massacre actually happened in 1921. And I honestly was almost brought to tears because how did I not know this? I'm a 33-year-old who loves history. I have taken multiple history classes in the prestigious University of Washington, Tacoma. And I took history classes at Grand River Community College. And I was being taught, in college at least, kind of the true history of America, about racism, about not only black slaves, but indentured servitude with Irish and the Chinese. And then I was learning about how our geopolitical politics pre and post World War II affected Europe and Africa, Latin America, Asia. I could go on and on and on. My point being, how the fuck did I miss this? How did I miss this? And it's notable because it happened 100 years ago today. Okay? And it is shocking that if you asked people in this country that had a public or private education system growing up, I bet the mass majority would not know what the Tulsa Race Massacre was. And just in case you don't know what it is, the Tulsa Race Massacre took place May 31st and June 1st, 1921, when mobs, and I'm talking mobs, of white residents, many of them deputized and given weapons by city officials, attacked black residents and businesses of the Greenwood District in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that was called at the time the Black Wall Street. And they used planes to drop firebombs. Oh my God. Alternatively known as Black Wall Street Massacre, the Greenwood Massacre, the Tulsa Massacre, the Tulsa Pogrom, or the Tulsa Race Riot, it marks one of the single worst incidents of racial violence in American history. Yeah, didn't know about it till I was fucking 33, and I learned about it on a fucking TV show about superheroes. The attack, carried out on the ground and from private aircraft, destroyed more than 35 square blocks of the district. At that time, the wealthiest black community in the United States, known as Black Wall Street. More than 800 people were admitted to hospitals, and as many as 6,000 black residents were interned in large facilities, many of them for several days. The Oklahoma Bureau of Vital Statistics officially recorded 36 dead. But of course, it is much higher because statistics back in those days, you can't really trust them, especially when they're white people counting dead blacks in the South. A 2001 state commission examination of events was able to confirm 39 dead, 26 black and 13 white, based on contemporary autopsy reports, death certificates, and other records. The commission gave several estimates ranging from 75 to 300 dead. And if you want to know more about this, just go to Wikipedia if you're a lazy fuck, and watch Watchmen. But it's just, that's just an example, okay, of how the public education system has failed generations of children. And I don't blame the teachers. I don't blame the principals. You got to blame the funding they get from the federal government and how they bring religion into these schools to fuck things up. Standardized testing is a goddamn joke. But I could rant and rave about the current state of education because, believe me, I know a lot of teachers and they do not pull punches. And plus, those bitches can party. But let's move on to the last cunt of the week. I had to take a quick joint break after getting really worked up talking about the pitiful public education system in this country. But I'm also going to get worked up on this one because the last and the most egregious cunt of the week is the one, the only, John Cena. Now, I know what you're thinking. Angelo, how can you call John Cena a cunt? Now, I like John Cena. What he does alone for the Make-A-Wish kids and how he goes to children's hospitals and what he does for the community overall. The guy's an A-plus stand-up guy. So, the reason I'm calling him a cunt this week is because he issued an apology to China in Mandarin for calling Tibet a country. And it was so disgusting to watch him blubber on social media and just butcher Mandarin while apologizing to the Chinese people. I'm very, 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 very sorry. It's just, people, this is a larger issue here, okay? This is not the first time a celebrity or an athlete or a journalist or whoever had to apologize to the government of China for calling China out on their bullshit. I mean, what was that NBA owner said? They're beheading Uyghurs there and they're massacring Muslims there. And the whole NBA was like, no, we're sorry. Even LeBron James's dumbass had to get out there and apologize to all China. Now, John Cena, if you don't know, he is in so many movies. Fast and Furious 69, the Suicide Squad sequel. I think he's getting his own Suicide Squad character TV show on HBO or whatever, whoever owns the rights to DC. And so, whoever owns DC, or if it's Warner Brothers, I don't fucking know, probably heard that John Cena said something. I don't know what he said about Tibet besides calling Tibet a country. Oh, God forbid. And Warner Brothers probably called John Cena and said, listen, you budget Hulk Hogan bitch. You are costing us the Chinese market. Oh, God forbid you don't make, millions more money. You're already making millions. In fact, you're probably making billions off of John Cena alone. But you want to make just a little bit more money from the Chinese people as their oppressive government legitimately is killing Muslim people, let alone their own people. I could keep going. Okay, I could keep going. And by the way, it's not racist to call out China, okay? It's racist to blanket all Chinese people as something. And that's not what I'm doing. I'm saying the Chinese government specifically. And I just don't think that we should apologize for this bullshit. We apologize to China and Israel, and those are the only two countries that I ever see people in this country apologizing for. Well, when I said that Palestine, is getting treated a little bit poorly by Israel, I didn't mean to imply anything negative. I was just saying that, it's hard to get all of the Palestinian babies out of the building before the Israeli rockets hit because the Israelis use rockets that are so much quicker than what the Palestinians have. So, I apologize for bringing up statistics and talking about Israelis killing babies in Palestine. But you have to apologize for saying things like that when you're an accredited journalist. But anywho, it's just this whole idea. If you say shit about the country of Germany as a journalist or an actor or an athlete, the next day you don't have to go on Twitter and say, well, I'm going to speak in German and I'm going to apologize first to Angela Merkel and then I'm going to apologize to all the German people for saying yesterday that German people tend to not have a sense of humor. Okay? We don't do that. But because China, let's face facts, people, China won. We are not the number one power in the world, and we haven't been that for quite some time. China has been the number one power at least since 1992, maybe 94. And I just pulled a date out of the thin air, but at least the last 20 years, okay? They've won. They own us. All the debt we have, they just take. And they just hold it over us. We look the other way when they're taking over Africa, when they're taking over the China Sea, which is international water shared by multiple countries. They don't give a fuck. We look the other way when they're oppressing their own people, when they're killing journalists, when they're doping their athletes, when they're, again, beheading Muslims in camps where Disney movies are filmed, like that bullshit Mulan. I mean, one of my favorite clothing companies, H&M, asked the Chinese government, hey, you make a lot of our clothes here. We just want to make sure that Uyghur slaves are not making our clothes. And China said, the fact that you asked that question, get the fuck out. I said, no, you can't buy H&M in China, okay? Are you kidding me? So, John Cena probably was asked. That's not probably. He absolutely, I guarantee it was asked by some fucking capitalistic nut job in Warner Brothers to say, we're going to fly you over to Winnie the Pooh there, whoever runs China, and he's going to stick his yellow furry penis in your mouth, and you're going to hold it there and apologize to him in person. And you better learn Mandarin, because you're going to do it in Mandarin. In fact, you're going to do it in all the languages they speak while his cock and balls are in your mouth. And John Cena thought, you know what? Do I want to keep working in Hollywood? Did I make enough money by wrestling forever in WWF, even though Vince McMahon fucked me over and there's rumors that he fucked my wife? Did I make enough money with these movies that I do? Didn't I earn enough love from fans based on the charities and the goodwill that I do in my community? Isn't that enough? Surely, if they fire me from Fast and the Furious 69, and surely if they cancel my Suicide Squad fucking TV show, surely another studio is going to give me a chance. I'm John Cena. I'm very popular. I'm the white Keanu Reeves, basically. But no. John Cena, like most other people, is a greedy cunt. And he said, I want to keep my money. I want to keep my standing. So I will apologize. And that was offensive what I just did, because I was trying to make Mandarin sounding words with my mouth and not knowing anything. So, to apologize for that, I'm going to look up how to say what I wanted to say using English to Mandarin Google Translator. Let's see. So this is what I was trying to say. Gyun Kai Zongui Nyamian Zixai Hyundan, which means fuck off China, you cunts. And I'm sure they're listening to me, and I will have a black burlap sack put over my head here shortly, taken out to a van. Anyway, you know what I was trying to say. If you find me dead in a ditch tomorrow, it could have been the Chinese, the Israelis, the Russians, my own government, my neighbor for hearing me rant and rave with the window open like this every week, and he's thinking, I can't take this anymore. Angelo's podcast is lowering property values in the neighborhood. To bring it back to wrestling and John Cena, I don't think you would have had a pro wrestler from back in my day as a kid growing up would have apologized. Can you imagine Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels or Stone Cold Steve Austin or 1990s Undertaker saying something about Tibet and then having to apologize? Because wrestlers were in movies back then. I mean, they weren't superstars like today. I mean, is there a bigger action movie star or just movie star than The Rock? And you know, fuck The Rock too. How many shitty ass movies are you going to be in that are the same kind of movie? Come on, The Rock. You know, I'm going to call you Dwayne Johnson because that's your name. But come on, Dwayne. Do you need to make, you know, Jumanji 5 and you're also in the Fast and the Furious movies? I mean, enough is enough. I mean, can't you make a decent... I mean, you are going to be Black Adam, which I'm kind of excited for. I'm such a fucking idiot. I'm excited for one of his movies coming up, and I'm talking shit about The Rock. You know what, The Rock? I apologize. You're a goddamn saint and a hero, but if you run for office, I will rail against you and never vote for you because you're an actor, a wrestler, and just a famous person, and that doesn't mean you can be president. Okay, so go fuck yourself there. You're a cunt for thinking you can be president, The Rock. But he would not apologize back in the day for anything. Now, The Rock 2021 absolutely would apologize. But I don't think 2021 Stone Cold Steve Austin would apologize. That motherfucker is still keeping it real. But by the way, is there a better wrestling match from the 1990s than The Undertaker and Mankind's Hell in the Cell in Pittsburgh? When was that? 1998? Oh my god. You know what? I'm going to talk about this for a while. Let me take a quick break here because I'm going to get into this fucking fight because I think about this fight at least 5 times a day for the last 20 years, so buckle up, baby. This one's going to be a fun ride. Well, it's going to be a fun ride for me, at least, and that's all I care about when I'm recording this podcast. So the Mankind versus The Undertaker was a professional wrestling match between Mankind, Mick Foley, and The Undertaker, Mark Calloway, of the then World Wrestling Federation, WW motherfucking F, and took place inside a Hell in a Cell, a 16-foot high steel cage-like structure with a roof. It was the third Hell in a Cell match in history and took place at the King of the Ring pay-per-view on June 28, 1998 at the Civic Arena in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And you know your boy watched that with a bunch of his buddies at my father's house, who had a Russian black box that he bought off some dude on the freeway ramp. And we had it all of the 1990s and most of the 1980s. Never paid for a goddamn thing that was on pay-per-view. And we watched every major sporting event, boxing event, wrestling event. So, Pops, you did something right. And I remember this was the day I became a man, because my balls dropped to the floor and I saw this fight. Though the match had received little build in the way of storytelling before the event due to the unpredictability of the WWF's Attitude Era, which was the era of the time of wrestling. It's pretty stupid that there is eras of wrestling. The two characters had an extensive backstory that motivated both performers heading into the match. Very true. Very true. I remember for at least a couple years, they were mortal enemies, Mankind and The Undertaker. Every now and then you'd bring in a second or third or fourth guy in there to be, maybe there was a big tag team fight or a 3-on-1, you know, Kane, Undertaker's brother, and then you had Mick Foley, who had 3 other characters. I think it was Dude something. He was like a hippie. And then Mankind, and what was the third one? It was like he was like a Wild Jack or Wild Bill or something. I used to know all this shit about Mick Foley, but Mankind is his big thing. That was his main character. The match would immediately set the standard for future Hell in a Cell matches due to Foley taking 2 dangerous and highly influential bumps from the top of the cell in an attempt to surpass the previous Hell in a Cell in '97, planned beforehand with veteran wrestler and best friend of Mick Foley, Terry Funk. Terry Funk's a goddamn hero. Now, he's a hero. The first came when The Undertaker threw Mankind through an announce table position on the arena floor, but the second occurred unintentionally when The Undertaker performed a choke slam on Mankind through the roof of the cell. The match was nearly stopped as a result of both incidents, but continued at the urging of Foley. And I don't know how WWF does their copyright shit on YouTube. I don't know if they're like the WWF or Disney, you know, and shit gets pulled down. But if you can find this fight, I mean, light up a joint, stick your hand down your pants, and just watch it. Because I don't, if you're a wrestling fan, I don't think there's a better fight in the last 30 years. Now, I have to say that I haven't watched wrestling really since the early 2000s. But I grew up watching it religiously from the late 80s all the way through the 90s and probably up until 9/11. Because once I went into high school, it was no longer cool to watch wrestling, and so I had to give it up and you know, so I could be cool. But watching Undertaker throw Mankind off the top of the cell, landing on the announcer booth just explodes. Then he gets carried out, and then he runs back in, climbs the cell. Then he gets choke slammed. The roof falls, and he falls down. Again, they were going to cancel it. He said, fuck, no, I want to keep going. Mick Foley received numerous legitimate injuries performing the stunts. And though the match had little impact on his career in the short term, very true, I mean, he was wrestling like a week later, it took a severe physical toll on him in the long term, and eventually became the match he is most remembered for following his retirement in 2000. I mean, again, like I said, I think of this shit 5 times a day. The match received instant critical acclaim from the wrestling media and is widely regarded as a classic match in the careers of both wrestlers, as well as one of the greatest and most important Hell in a Cell matches in history. I mean, I don't know how it's not number 1. Then again, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen wrestling in 20 years. The commentator duo of Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler, the best, also received praise. Ross is particularly making some of his most famous calls during the match, which have overlapped into popular culture. Yeah, that is true. It's just insane to see 2 behemoths doing this, because Mankind is 6'2", 287 pounds at the time, and The Undertaker is 6'10", 328 pounds. I mean, god damn, this fight is good. I would pay good money to like own this fight, and I could watch it whenever I want. Oh my god. I mean, the Wikipedia page dedicated to this is bar none. It is awesome. and I could probably spend a whole podcast talking just about the Hell in the Cell, but I had other topics I wanted to talk about. I don't know if I'm going to get to them because we're, I think, running out of time. But, you know, I can talk about one thing. I've been following the news, and it seems every day, or almost every day, there is a new UFO story. And they're not being called UFOs anymore. I forget the acronym, but it's... I'm too old to change from UFO to something new, okay? I've been obsessed with UFOs my whole life. Some of my favorite movies from childhood involve UFOs. I'm not going to be calling them something new now, okay? That's where political correctness has gone too far. They're UFOs, damn it. But no one gives a fuck. 60 Minutes did a piece on it. No one gives a fuck. New York Times, Washington Post, all the major newspapers have been writing about how the Pentagon and the government and Joe Biden's talking about it, and we have histories of military personnel talking about this since the 90s, 80s, 70s, and we have such a glutton of information now. Now we actually have evidence, and we actually have statements from the government themselves talking about, yeah, well, here are some things, and there's some footage, we don't know the fuck they are. I mean, I just saw today these fucking like prism things floating in the sky, 3 of them. And the government today was like, we don't know what the fuck these are. They could be drones from other countries, and I don't buy that for a fucking minute. Because I have seen all of the videos, all of them, about the UFOs that have been released. And any country that has those flying aerial crafts, whatever they're called, they would be ruling the world. If those were Russian drones, we'd all be speaking Russian right now. Okay, Putin would be shirtless and a hologram in all of our houses right now if Russia had that technology. And you would think there'd be whistleblowers if they were our own aircraft and we were pretending that we didn't know what they were, okay? And also, I love it how this isn't enough for some people. Some people have lost their minds about this, like I have. I'm just and super into it and excited about it, and just it's great to actually be validated on some of these theories and thoughts, because I've always believed in UFOs, okay? Not like Mars attacks or xenomorphs or those little green men. I don't believe in that bullshit. I believed earnestly for a long time now that just by the sheer numbers, the odds, the percentages, there has to be a level of microorganism, single cell organism somewhere in our solar system or in other solar systems. There has to be. If you just look at statistically, it is impossible for us to be the only planet that has life. So that's what I mean by UFOs. Now, do I believe in an intelligent life to the point where they are sending aircraft into Earth or hovering around nuclear sites, which they seem to be doing, or really going in and out of the ocean at a speed that we don't have the ability to make instruments of machinery that do those things? I don't know. But some people are saying that, okay, because of this getting released, there's going to be a false flag operation. And I'm like, okay, just stop. Not everything is a conspiracy. Not everything that is awesome needs to be made awesomer right away. You know, can't we just relish in the fact that the Pentagon is saying we have video evidence of fucking flying UFO aircraft and we don't know what the fuck it is? Could it be weather balloons or satellites or drones? Sure. But again, if they are those things from another country, I mean, they deserve to be the world power. Whatever country is doing that shit, they deserve to rule the world. That technology is amazing. And no, I don't think it's Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk sending out their gay-ass rockets out there. No, I don't think it's them either. And by the way, have you seen the Jeff Bezos rockets? They're all big dicks. They're all dicks. He's rubbing it in our faces. He's like, look at my spacecraft. It literally has a mushroom head for the tip of the aircraft. I mean, he's not even hiding it. I mean, I know he's single now, ladies, and he's like, look, my penis is so normal. Look at my jet. Look at my rocket. No way am I overcompensating for something. See, if that was a Bill Gates, you could make a Microsoft joke because, you know, anyway. What the hell was I talking about? So yeah, UFOs are real. No one gives a fuck. I mean, can you imagine if this information, these videos, the coverage was released 20 years ago, and then sometime in the 90s. Can you imagine? I mean, heads would literally explode like a David Cronenberg film. That's a deep cut for you. And I mean, I have some friends that are really into it, but overall, the mass majority of Americans really don't give a fuck. They'd rather do Uber Eats and stream another bullshit movie off Netflix. They don't give a fuck. Nobody cares. And that to me is a shame. But you know what? I care. And I'll be talking more about UFO footage because it is amazing to me that I've lived to see the day, as a young man, relatively speaking, that we are now admitting, as a country, that for decades, there has been like legitimate evidence from legitimate people, from legitimate sources, and we still don't know what the fuck they are. I mean, I was seeing footage they released from like the 90s and early 2000s, you know, kind of grainy, pixelated footage. You know, this is 20 years later, and they still don't know what the fuck it is. And you have to wonder how many people were silenced, you know, like the Bob Lazars of the world. So, in order to, like, shame them or make them embarrassed for believing in something so radical as UFOs. Ugh, I tell you, man. We are spoiled as babies. Because if this doesn't excite us, if this doesn't kind of bring us together, I don't know what will, man. Honestly, if there really was a legitimate alien attack, and we all had to, like, you know, in the movies when there's an alien attack, all the nations group together in as a unifying cause, if you will. Like Watchmen, they did it. Independence Day, they did it. I mean, there's countless movies and graphic novels and books and TV shows that have done this. But think about it. 2021, 2022, if alien spaceships randomly showed up all over the globe and fired into major cities, do you really think that all of the countries in the world would be working together to fight a common enemy? I mean, do you even think all Americans would agree? Or do you think a lot of people would say, you know what, let's not judge these aliens, okay? We don't know where they're coming from, okay? Can we just hear them out? Maybe they actually want to fix our society, okay? Maybe we deserve to die. You know, and then there'd be people like the anti-vaxxers, they don't believe in any of this. No, those aren't spaceships firing laser beams into London and Shanghai and Moscow and New York. No. This is all fake. These are all CGI. And if they are real, it's actually the Jews' fault because, as we all know, the Jews control the weather. And they have laser beam satellites because that's what Marjorie Taylor Greene or Bobbitt, whoever those crazy bitches said. So obviously it's them. So no, I don't think we'd be a unified country, let alone a world. Although the memes would be fire. You know what? And on that terrible, awful note, I think we can wrap up this latest podcast. So, like always, hope you all take it sleazy. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Treat others as you want to be treated. And, yeah, I'll catch you on the next one.